first off, I just want to thank you guys for being here. I know you all don't do very many TV interviews together, so we were honored to have you guys here sitting together and answering our questions here. So without further ado, we would like to just start by saying Happy New Year, a couple months late. But what are some goals for the university now that we are starting in a new year?
Well, first of all, thanks for having us. It's good to be together just in general, but to do a TV interview. And, you know, we're so very thankful for all of our students, all Bearcats. A lot of goals for the new year. There's such momentum at Northwest Missouri State University. And what we're trying to do is to take our strategy, that we have 5 objectives, don't want to get into all the details, but really move the university forward with our strategy, with a comprehensive campus master plan that goes with that strategy, and a fundraising plan called Forever Green. So you've got focus, the strategic plan, take us through the goals, campus master plan, fundraising plan, bring them all together, be aligned, move the institution forward.
Okay. Well, moving forward, as we're quickly approaching spring break now, we're just several weeks away, what do the Jasinskis do around spring break time?
Relax. Relax. It's, you know, Maryville's just, I love having the students around, but it's really nice to have a little downtime. I like to get outside, work in the garden. We like to just try to find some getaway time. We usually don't travel. If we do travel, we'll go up to Michigan and see family, but for the most part, probably just relax.
This spring break may be a bit different than others, just trying to give you a heads up on that.
Okay.
We do like to relax and maybe get caught up and look ahead to the yard and some other things, but you know, we're hopeful that we will be traveling to South Dakota and Sioux Falls
This is true.
for the
Yes.
Elite Eight, but that's way ahead of
Right.
ourselves.
Right.
I know that
Absolutely.
here it is in March and so much has to happen, but you know, bottom line for us is spring break is a lot like it is for students, and that is a rejuvenation period, a period of getting ready to kind of close it down through commencement and get ready for the summer.
Now, do the kids come home for spring break, or do they go elsewhere?
No, Leah will come home for spring break for a little bit, but I'm sure she has some plans of her own. She is a college student. This year she's not going on any big spring break. And Luke's home with us. And then Joe lives in Montana now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And Matt's here in Maryville, so we see him different times.
So lots of downtime for you two then,
Right.
while everybody else is doing their own thing.
Right.
So.
Yes, there's always a lot of downtime for me.
No,
Right?
John takes so much downtime. He does.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, so what are some things you guys look forward to in the spring months? It's getting warmer finally. Of course, we didn't get much snow in Maryville like we normally do. So now that the snow has cleared and it's getting warmer, what do you guys look forward to in those spring months?
Personally, I look forward to the gardening and being outside and getting the flowers ready and getting the patio ready. It opens up a whole nother room for us for doing just relaxing for our family, but entertaining for the university and bringing different departments and students to our house. So I look forward to that. And then getting the vegetable garden going, and this is my 5th year for it. So it's one of those that I call it the neighborhood garden. You know, come and pick from it and enjoy it.
What do we have in the vegetable garden this year?
Oh, it varies, but every year I have cherry tomatoes and we'll have carrots and we have beets and cucumbers and some of your staples, your lettuce, and then I play with some different lavender and herbs and things that you can use in the kitchen. So every year I play with a few different things and I keep learning along the way.
Okay. What about you, Dr. J?
Well, I think spring is like any of the other seasons. I love to be outside and run and take Ruby, the family dog, the Vizsla, out. But we run in bitter cold and snow and the intense heat and all that. It's a different kind of run in the spring, so love to be outside. I surprised Mrs. J last year and helped set up the garden and really, at the end of the season, take it down and so on. So I hope to reserve a little time to do that. But again, it's also getting a chance to maybe just be outside, get a cup of coffee and read a book. You know, we're all caught up in our daily routine, all of us, and social media and all that, but I like to take a step back and get a good book and just read and be outside taking the fresh air.
Which I'm sure you don't get to do that very often, so it's nice when that time comes around, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and you know, what you try to do is look at your cycles throughout the year, the up times, down times. There's just not a lot of downtime, but to really be purposeful and intentional and say, you know, what are some readings, some books, magazine articles, whatever they might be, research articles, to really understand that to get you out of the daily craziness, if you will.
So one of the key things will be pulling out the hammock and getting that ready to go.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, moving past the spring months and kind of into those topics that have been happening all over the university and all over the state, really, what's it look like for budget cuts, Dr. J?
Yeah, it's pretty tough right now. If you look across the nation, and then just circle into our region, Oklahoma colleagues, Illinois, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri. So as I talk to our colleagues, talk to our students, faculty, staff, it isn't just us. It's not just Northwest Missouri State, but it's everywhere. Our colleagues in Oklahoma, 16% cut this year. So we've got a 10% cut that's been proposed. There's a long way until May 5th when the state budget's due. So we'll see how that goes. We have more work to do at the State House. We've got some enrollment issues, not unlike anybody else, really across the U.S., but especially here in the Midwest. Freshmen, really there's a decline in 18-year-olds through about 2022, but you've got international enrollment issues and so on. Then you got mandatory expenses. So those three combined put a lot of pressures on the budget itself. So don't want to sugarcoat it at all. It's going to be very difficult, very difficult. We're going through that. We have an involvement plan, being transparent, communicating, but it's going to cut across everybody, and everybody will have to have a heavy lift with it. Think about that. Faculty and staff, students, fundraisers, and the list goes on. Stakeholders overall. I've got business people from the town saying, how will this impact my business? Yes, it's going to impact everybody, but we're trying to make sure that we don't look at it as a spring 2017 exercise. This is important because we're projecting cuts next year in 18 again. And as we think about our culture and think about our climate, we have to be stewards of our culture and climate. And doing that through the good times and the difficult times, that's what you do when you're leading.
What does this mean for that new multi-purpose building complex that everyone's been talking about and we've really been anticipating for so many years now?
Right, and it's a great question because we were just looking back to 2012 when we just went out and did campus study sessions with faculty, staff, students, and that was the #1 project that came on board, and then it was mapped into the strategic plan, mapped into the campus master plan, Forever Green, our campaign to raise funds for Northwest. So this isn't a new subject. It's really been on the drawing board for quite some time. As you look at difficult conditions, or if you look at momentous conditions, whatever year you're looking at, you're always going through a period of, if I can use Mrs. J's look at the garden, of planting, of replanting, of taking out a plant and then doing something different. It's no different when you look at the university landscape. So it isn't just the Northwest Multipurpose Center. I mean, as part of our campus master plan, we're looking at an admissions visitor center, an agricultural learning center. The Faust Center for Alumni and Friends actually we just broke ground on that before this interview, and it's an uplift right now. They're all different funds, so it's not just what are we going to do with this one or that one. It's how we're going to look at it in its totality and selectively let go of the past of some things. We can't do everything. We can't provide every service for student that we have since 1905. We have to be as efficient, effective, productive with what we're doing today and know that what we're doing today is mission critical, but we also have to invest in the future. That's a long answer to get to. As we look at the Northwest Multipurpose Centers of the world, we have to understand that there's various forms of funding within that we've got donor commitments as part of that. It was a #1 project. It's part of the strategic plan, and that we have to continue to go forward on that and to see if we're going to have the right kind of funding and the right kind of funding elements to it, that it still fits in with all of our objectives. There are 4 goals to it. So we're continuing down our timeline, and by the end of the spring, we'll know where we're at, by probably late April.
Okay. I'm sure we'll be talking more about that as time continues. So Mrs. J, seeing all of these improvements and accomplishments across the university that your husband's made since 2009, what does this mean for you?
And as an alum of Northwest,
As an alum,
it means a great deal. I mean, it's just that part of it alone. We were planted here 30 years ago. When John first moved me to Maryville, I looked at him and said, "You need to get me out of here in 2 years." It's a beautiful place. I had to open my eyes to it. It's been very wonderful for us. And so I just look at this as a continued legacy that we're doing. I mean, this is what we're supposed to be doing right now. I don't think we're doing anything more than anybody else that would have come in this position at this time, and looking at the future of Northwest and looking at how it's going to be for the students to go out there. And the biggest thing is for students to go out being ready to be participants in the world, to be citizens, active participant citizens, to be people that are in the professions that want to give back. We have so many of our alums that come back to give to the students, and that's because of the groundwork that was done here. And so we just continue that and continue to evolve the university as we go. So I'm very proud of him and what he's done, and always looking not just for what's today, but what's going to be for 20 years. How are we setting up the future?
And if I may, Jacob,
Absolutely.
I appreciate the question. I really appreciate the answer too. But, this has been an uplift by a team. And so Mrs. J is part of that team. There's so many people that are part of that team. It's a team around you, but it's also including students, alumni, community partnerships with employers and school districts. And so it's really everybody coming together, aligning themselves to uplift Northwest Missouri State University. Sure, I've been president, but sometimes you have to get the heck out of the way, right? No one, hey, I don't, but it's a team that does that. And I think that's what maybe as I look back on the pride factor, it's having team members come together and know that what you're doing is something meaningful for decades to come. And as we build these partnerships, we know that this isn't just a 1 year, a 5 year, a 10. For many of these projects, like the Agricultural Learning Center, like the Northwest Multipurpose Center, they're going to serve the broader region, and they're going to be meaningful for 10, 20, and 50 years out. It's a great deal.
I will add in there, though, I am very proud of his ability to lead team. That has always been something that is a gift of John's, and that he's honed throughout his time and in his professional career. And I think that's the gift that he brings to the university, along with the forward thinking, is the can-do attitude, and everybody's a team player, and we bring the different people to the team that need to be there. So it's a vested interest by all, not just a few.
It's the same thing as being a husband too, or no?
We can
Different
get into
question
that if we'd
altogether.
like to. But thank you for that, Mrs. J. When you accepted the role as president and began the journey in 2009, of course, the journey at Northwest began before 2009. But looking back now, is it everything you thought it would be?
Well, probably a little bit more. When you're associated with Northwest Missouri State University, and here we are as in this wonderful facility that we have, and my first day on the job was in Wells Hall, where we're sitting right now. So as you look back to that first day, and then you look ahead to 2017, you have to say, wow, pretty blessed, because you're with Bearcats. You're with wife, 4 great kids, dog, but you're with great Bearcats too. And as you look back at 2009, yeah, I think it's what in some ways you expect, but probably more so, the presidency has changed. I talk with many of my presidential colleagues. Really being a first lady has changed since 2009. So when I talk to my colleagues, and really former presidents, as we were talking to Mrs. Foster, Dr. Foster, obviously, the 8th president, Dr. and Mrs. Owens, 9th president, first lady, Dr. and Mrs. Hubbard. Oh, wait, it's 7, 8, and 9, because we're the 10th, I guess. But, as you talk about their service and their roles, they had different conditions, right? And different inputs and outputs and all of this. Well, even for us since 2009, it's changed quite a bit. And for the better, for the worse, it's changing because the nation changes, international conditions change. And as a leader, you have to accept that and know that there's some ambiguity there. But at the heart of it is the culture, the climate of Northwest Missouri State, the heart of Bearcats. And that's the best thing right there.
Talking about change, when you became president and the wife of the president or first lady, what have you.
She loves that, by the way. Being called the first lady, it's her favorite thing of all time.
Denise, yeah.
I'm sure you get asked time and time again, how do you maintain that normal lifestyle coming into this?
We make sure our family is taken care of first. That is how we maintain the normal lifestyle. And you know, with it, comes a lot of times when John is pulled a lot of different ways. We all are pulled different ways. But I've had the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mom since Leah was born. And that's been a gift to our family and this job, because then we have some balance in the home. But we never, it can go in its own direction sometimes, but we're pretty good about pulling it back and making sure that our family unit has some harmony. Now, I mean, you know, we have teenagers, so they're not always, you know, in line with us by any way, shape, or form. But that we spend time together and that we work through the issues that we have within our home and not let ourselves be distracted by all the outside things and forget about some of the things we need to keep developing at home. So that's how we stay grounded and as normal as you possibly can.
And I always ask, you know, what is a normal relationship, right? So it's hard to define that on any given day, week, month, and year. But as we think about ourselves, you know, just trying to figure out when to take some downtime together. Sometimes that downtime includes an event or activity at Northwest Missouri State University. Sometimes it does not. And being able to accept that, some weeks there are more events that you want or need to be at, and you accept that. And some weeks you can pull back a little bit. And I think that the ability to communicate the best you can, I mean, there are days when, you know, we're able to not even be able to, you know, what are we doing at 7 o'clock tonight, right? But that's part and parcel of the position. And if you're engaged, which Mrs. J is, you know, I'm an engaged president, that's what you should be doing, right? At an institution like Northwest that really there's so much to offer here and there's so many great things going on. And you want to be with students, with faculty, with staff, and see all the vibrance going on out there. It's beautiful. And then you got alumni that want to be engaged, and so many community members that, you know, just want to embrace and be part of that Bearcat culture. So, you know, that's part of that relationship.
And then there's some days where you just say, no, done, not today. You know, I mean, you have to find your way through it. This is our first presidency, and so it was all new to us, and we've just had to learn how to work through it for the best for our relationship, our family, and the university and region.
When you took the president position, how did you, I mean, you had small children at the time, really.
Yeah.
How did you prepare your family, your children, for being in that public spotlight?
You know what? We made our home a family home, just like our other home in Maryville was. So that was the consistency that we could give to our children, is that they, and their friends at first, and their parents, of course, were like, oh, no, you know, you can't. And I'm like, no, this is a family home. I am a girl that makes sure that the home has low maintenance. So as far as cleaning, yes, you end up with, you know, 8 or 9 kids in there because the 2 kids would have 3 or 4 each. But that's the normalcy. I wanted them to have a very normal childhood as you can, but in the same breath, Lucas, when he was about 10 years old, would say, well, the university is my backyard. And it's like within parameters, you know, I mean, you're only 10 years old. You're not going all over the university. So, but the kids have also, they have memories that they will have from living. We don't own that house. They will never be able to come back to it with their grandkids when they're older because it's not our home. But when they drive by with their friends and their friends drive by with their children, they will be able to tell stories of the times that they had at the Gaunt house. Yeah. And so we've made sure that they've built memories, and I think that's the normalcy for children.
Yeah. And just kudos to Mrs. J, because she has so many gifts and talents, but you know, looking at things and seeing a vision and carrying through on that is certainly one of her gifts. and looking at the Gaunt House and saying, we can make this open to the community, open to kids, open to alumni, and she's brought that to life, and I'm so thankful for that. But that's allowed for our kids, hopefully, to have some form of, embracing and welcoming. Our older kids, Matt and Joe, they were a little older when we took the presidency, so they understood the public and the private pressures of all that and took that in on their own. Leah and Luke probably had to learn a little bit along the way. I think, Mrs. J and I did too. So, when you're off campus and you go to Hy-Vee or wherever you're going for eggs and bacon and milk and all that, she'd say, go get some eggs, 5 minutes. It's an hour and a half later because people want to talk to you about all that.
But I always send him to Hy-Vee.
See, then you don't have to worry about it.
But when you go to get the newspaper in the morning, and it's 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and people are running, walking by and stopping you saying, maybe. But that's part of it too. You talk to your kids about that. Now, when Luke talks about the backyard, he also realizes that, hey, you might give Clarence a green. If we're going to be out of town for, hey, Clarence, can you take a ride by the house? So they have that going on too.
Yeah.
But that's the fun part.
It is. Yeah. We have so the house is, it has evolved. It's this beautiful architecture. I mean, when Mr. Gaunt finished that house in 1873, what he did, everything by hand, is just amazing to me. But we've made it very functional for university to come in and to host a lot of different events. And then we have a ping pong table that gets folded up and it's in the back kit room. And then during holidays, and downtimes, weekends, we might wheel that out and it sits in our entranceway and the kids play ping pong in there. So we've made it very dual functioning and so that it can service everybody.
Let's talk a little bit about that. I know when you took the presidency, you made some remodels and things to the house. What were some of those remodels that you did make?
It was mostly the carpeting and the wallpaper and things like that were outdated. They hadn't really had anything done to them in quite some time. And Mrs. Hubbard was very gracious to me after she came in afterwards and took me by the arm and said, oh, honey, it needed it. We had the opportunity to live in our other house in Maryville, so the university didn't have that expense of where are we going to put the president and his family while all this is going on. I'm also a girl that loves to get in there and remodel things, and so the crew had to get used to Denise being on site at the same time they were, and I learned that, okay, if they were working downstairs, my girlfriends and I would work upstairs. So we were just a part of that team that just got after it. When things are dated, they just need to be uplifted. And our family was very much a part of it. Just got in there and they pulled out every bit of pink carpeting that was in there. And so we just, and then we recently have made it much more functional in our kitchen area. And again, I'm a repurposer. So we took the original cabinets that were there and we raised them up. About 70% of the original cabinets were repurposed and reused and just painted. I had a log out back that was there for a long time. And that got taken to a sawmill, and it became the countertops, like about 80% of our countertops. So
part of the Arboretum.
Part of that, yeah. It was there for a long time, and it was decayed, and the university said, we need to take this down, almost 4 years ago now, and they left me. They're used to Mrs. J by this point. They're like, uh-oh, here she comes. What is she, So, and one of the guys said to me, he said, Mrs. J, sometimes those ideas you have, we sit there and think, but they usually turn out pretty well. And that's what he said to me. So they're getting used to that aspect of it. Well, yeah, we can do this. How can we do this on a tight budget? Because that's one of the things I am very much. It's been our upbringing and everything we've done is we've always lived on a tight budget. And I don't think that I should think any differently just because it's not monies that is coming directly out of our pockets. It's still taxpayers' money, and that's why we opened the home up. Not only reason, but that's one of the reasons why I felt, yes, this home needs to be opened up to the university. It's their home as well.
So I would confirm that there are some ideas when I'm shaking my head like, but they do come to fruition. But the garden that is just outside by the pond and over by Colden Pond there and the shed area, again, are creations of Mrs. J's, and they create a warm and vibrant feeling. But even when you're taking photos with after commencement with our students, and in the background across the pond is this new area that Mrs. J, it uplifts some beauty for Bearcats. So we're very thankful for that.
Mrs. J, we talked before the interview began. Tell us that story behind the pink doors.
So when we first moved into the Gaunt house, there was one room that even the trim work was painted pink, and a set of doors there were pink. And of course I was trying to get rid of any pink I possibly could. And so they were going to just take the doors off, but the doors came from Wells Hall. And with John having taken his first job here at Wells Hall, to me, I am a girl of stories, and I love those little things that just, I think they're meant to be. And so for me, I was like, yes, these doors need to stay here. We stripped them down, you know, a couple elbow grease things, and that stuff is gone. And so now we have those beautiful doors, and I love the fact that they came from Wells Hall way back when, and this happened to be the first place that my husband was employed, and our story begins there.
I just love that. We talked before the interview, and that was awesome. I love that so much. Such a cool thing for even students who, you know, Adam, who's running our cameras right now, we spend most of our days here, hour after hour, and so getting a piece of history like that in the Gaunt house is just amazing to see.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Oh, let's see, moving on here. With both of you being formal faculty members, you were in Trio, I believe, before, and then you were here in Wells Hall and assistant provost before that? Is that correct?
Something like that,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
How have these positions changed compared to the ones that you have now?
You know, it's still about interaction with students mostly. I mean, it is. It's about how what we're doing is going to help build up opportunities for development of our students, for development of curriculum, development of space for our students, development of creativity for our faculty and staff. So that to me has been a thread that goes all the way through. I have a few more formal events I have to do, you know, and get the house ready for different things along those lines. But I think that for me, that's what I still see it as. I'm a contributing member of the university in an informal capacity, but it is about how we lift others up to be able to achieve their goals and their dreams.
And so as you think about being a faculty member, an advisor to then KDLX, now KZLX, directing the then freshman seminar program, now university seminar, doing those sorts of positions, being the associate provost and so on. You're working with students, you're working with all kinds of faculty and staff across the institution. You're integrating amongst the community on a variety of service projects and being involved in your church and your community. You're still doing those things, right? Classroom's a little different, but it's still a classroom. It's just a little larger classroom with a few different students. Now the students might be legislators. They might be alumni. They might be community members. Could be employers. Could be students, right? So classroom's a bit different. Maybe the advising situation's a bit different. But it's really all about people. And we're in a people-intensive business. We're in a talent development business, if you think about it. And so as we think about Northwest Missouri State, you really try to capture the campus climate, the campus culture, hopefully continue to improve that, but then make sure that people on the outside, wherever outside is, understand that as you're interacting with a Bearcat, it's something special. And we talk a lot about being Bearcats, and we talk about learning and connecting and caring and practicing civility and showing pride. Those aren't just words. Those are what Bearcats do. And as we talk to employers, and I'm just coming off several meetings with employers, and what they're saying is, I get it, I see it. When we hire an intern, when we hire a new employee, when we hire somebody for their third job, it's just a different vibe. Well, that's what being a Bearcat's all about.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add on that one?
Just that, again, it really does come back to the basis of it. All of that, what John said, is just everything that we do really comes back to how are we helping to develop our students, our faculty, and our space to provide the maximum experience that they can.
When you're not in the east wing of the admin building, and when you're not at university events or in the Gaunt house, what do you guys enjoy doing?
I'm not in East Wing very often, so
I like to travel. I have a large family, and so I love to be able to go and visit my siblings and my father, and go and do that, and just take in new experiences. Just read and just relax. You know, I'm a homebody when I'm here. Part of that is maybe, I don't know, I guess I always have been. I love projects. You know, if I can find a project, I will find a girlfriend that has something that she would like to get done. I'm like, okay. You know, so helping people make their space something that they are more appealed by. I'm a believer in the psychology of space. So if you walk into a space and you feel good about that space, your mind is going to be open to that environment. It's going to be open to whatever goes on in that environment. If you walk into a space and it's this dilapidated, like run down, it does something to your psyche. So anytime I can get involved in those types of projects, I'm always there.
I like to body surf, cliff dive. You know, we said it before, but getting a chance to get away, whatever that means, and it could be just for a simple cup of coffee. I love that. Having individual time with each of the kids, or collective time. Going out for runs with Ruby, those are all things I really enjoy. Reading, just reading non-higher ed kinds of items is a sheer joy. And it's going to sound pretty trite, Jacob, but honestly, spending time with Bearcats is pretty special. I know that, you know, our viewers are saying, yeah, right. But you know, I've spent so much time with Emeriti faculty, with alumni. Mrs. J and I are coming off about a month ago, a week-long trip that cut across so many different stakeholders. I mean, there was just a lot of different stakeholders, current students, former students, legislators, alumni, employers. And it was such you wish a camera crew could be behind you to really experience what you're seeing and hearing and taking in and saying, wow, this is pretty special. So really spending time with Bearcats and Bearcat lovers is a good thing too.
Thank you for that. When you started the presidency, Matt was pursuing his master's degree. Joe was just starting college. Leah was in 6th grade, and Luke was in 4th grade. How have the Jasinski family changed over the last 7 years, and how have they adjusted to their dad being president?
Well, I'll jump in first. So, of course, like you've changed in your time at Northwest, or since you were in 4th or 6th grade or whatever, probably the similar kinds of adjustments. But I think we've all adjusted to the changing role, because you know a lot goes on during any given academic year. So every year is different, but it's also as people are growing throughout. So think about it. If you look back to 2009, we came into the presidency in July. In December, we're winning a national football championship. Our 4th and 6th grader are saying, wow, that's pretty cool. Do we get to do it next year? We didn't do it the next year, but we've done it a few times since then, right? But then you take all of the other things. Dad's traveling, dad's traveling, dad's traveling. Mom's doing a project, and so everybody's growing that way because they're helping mom or seeing mom develop and grow and uplift the university. I've used that word several times today, by the way, purposefully, because it really, as I think about Mrs. J, uplifting the university. So I think the individual growth is to be expected. Everyone's going to do that. But I also, if you look across the kids and even ourselves, as we've taken in a variety of guests, governors and guest speakers, alumni and so on, the growth to embrace those individuals I've seen in our kids has been unbelievable. And the ability for them to interact in ways that we don't even know about after the fact. Thank you notes and emails back and forth, and those are all pretty neat items. So
I think they've risen to the occasion, I think, and I would hope that they would have about whatever. I would expect this type of growth from them, no matter what their father's job was. That they continued to work on themselves and developing themselves and giving of themselves. I love hearing the stories that I don't even know about, but because we are who we are, that people will share those stories with you a lot of times. And I think there's a lot of parents out there that their kids do that, and maybe they don't get to hear the stories as much, but that's the growth, you know, about just growing into being adults that care. They care about a lot of different factors, not just themselves.
And if I can even add to that too, that, you know, when you're in servant leader roles, I think it's not just the kids, but their friends see that what you're really trying to do is grow communities, right? It's growing people, growing communities, and hopefully not only do they see it, they actually practice it and then instill it in their friends and then beyond that. So I think that's part of the growth too.
I think sometimes their friends are like, oh yeah, we're not going to go over to Denise's right now because she has a thing going on and she's going to put us to work. I don't know how many times those boys will all be there especially, and I'll be like, hey, could you help me get the Christmas decorations out of the garage, or can you help me move all the patio furniture? Because you know, if you have a team, the job goes just like that. So, you know, we utilize them, we help them.
Thank you. What's one thing that, you know, a lot of people think that they know a lot about the Jasinski family? You know, we see you out at events and things a lot. What's one thing that people may not know about the Jasinski family?
Waiting for my wife. I'm trying not to do eye contact to see what my wife says about that.
We're just a normal couple. We're a normal couple that sometimes I think we forget that when people are in the public eye a lot of times, that they're just a normal family trying to grow, trying to spend time together, trying to celebrate all the joys and yet work through the difficulties, and then life, you know, and just live life and see where it's going to take us. I don't think there's, I mean, for me, that's what it is. We're just really, we're John and Denise who moved here from Michigan all those years ago.
Yeah, humble beginnings, and certainly we had cardboard boxes. We got married for our end tables and all that.
Our first furniture in Maryville. Let's get some cinder blocks, a piece of plywood, and a really pretty piece of material. And there, you know, it was college furniture pretty much.
But you apply that to, you know, leading a university, but also I think what people don't know sometimes is we want students to come and say hi. We want them to embrace and say, hey, will you come over to my event? Or, hey, can I go for a run with Ruby? Yeah, hop in, you know. So just because you're the president or the first lady doesn't mean that you're unapproachable, that you don't want to talk. So I get a chuckle, you know, because one thing I do, as you well know, I embrace and, you know, take out the earbud, say hi, say good morning, be a Bearcat, have a great day. That's what we want, right? Let's have some interaction and talk about how things are going. And it's not always going to be fun and roses and all of that. Let's talk about the trials and tribulations too. That's part of growth, right?
I think the best advice I was given for this position was by Mrs. Foster, Virginia Foster. And we went to go visit her one day, and it was probably within our first year, maybe year and a half. And she took me by the hand and she said, honey, you just be true to your soul and you'll do just fine. And so I think that's the thing, that we're just true to our souls and what we're supposed to be doing and moving forward from there.
And that helps me with something that I've been thinking about a lot. And some speeches I'll start with love. And you know, you get people like, well, where's he going with this? You're talking about love. But there's an author out there, John Bryant, and he talks about love leadership. And it resonates with me because I think what people sometimes don't know is that when you're in the East Wing, or when you're not, when you're with your team and helping craft the future, look at decisions, whatever, you're doing it with heart and mind. You're doing it with really love. Love for the Bearcat Paw, love for Northwest Missouri State. And sometimes I think people forget that. You know, oh, you sit behind a desk and you make this. Not really. You think about love, you think about really caring. You got to make some tough decisions. Yeah. But they're really from that base, and I think sometimes people forget that.
Mrs. J, when you both leave the Gaunt House at the end of a presidency, what do you want your legacy to be?
The opening it up to the public again, and it being that it's ready for the university to utilize in whatever capacity they feel the need to at that time. That I've helped get on the queue. I mean, that's one of the things I won't do is I won't just jump the queue. The queue being where the projects all fall in line. So, you know, they'll say, if I call in the beginning, I would call and say, hey, this needs to be done or this needs to be done and a work order needs to be put in. And I'd have somebody over there right away. And I was like, okay, this kind of needs to stop because somebody else's stuff is not getting done because of that. So we've gotten to the process where we're on the queue looking at the big picture of the Gaunt House and just being a mom. Alma mater is nurturing mother. And so just, I will forever be a mom, and whether it be to my children and all of their friends or the students that come through, welcoming as a mother would welcome into the home.
I just want to go on record, Jacob,
Absolutely.
and say, so when Mrs. J needs some things done around the house, we get them in queue, and if I say, I didn't quite get that done, I just want to say, it's not immediate, it's okay.
He's not going to jump the queue.
No,
so
he's
we're
not
good.
going to jump the queue. It is about the, I mean, if you look at those grounds, I mean, what Mr. Gaunt's vision and then the university's vision was for things. So we have looked at, I mean, we've hosted 3 weddings at the house in the last 4 years. So we're looking at how do we continue to grow that property so it can hold larger functions. Because it is gorgeous. I've had people that come into this house and they've lived in Maryville their entire life and they've never been there. You know, I have these older ladies that come in and the architecture in there and the detail on some of it, it's something that people should be able to be a part of.
Well, from a Bearcat, I can say thank you
Oh, you're welcome.
for all that you've done and inviting us over for the tree lighting and having refreshments afterward. And I know a lot of us here at the station just love coming and seeing you guys and seeing what you're doing with the house. And
No, thanks.
it's beautiful.
Thanks.
It's beautiful
we love
what
it.
you're doing.
I've been given an opportunity and a gift, and so again, I say we were planted. And you know, I had a project on our other house in Maryville that I had a large learning curve on it, and that happened about 5 years before we moved into the Gaunt House. Had I not gone through that large learning curve and had to deal with some of the situation and the struggles that I went through as finishing out that project, I might not have been as comfortable coming into this house and saying, oh, well, let's do this. Okay, let's get after this. And so, you know, things happen, and I think I was meant to live in this house at this time.
That's awesome. Dr. J, when you leave the presidency, like Mrs. J, what will your legacy be?
Don't think about that much, to be honest with you. And when I was kind of getting reflective, like I better get ready for that question. You know, first of all, you don't want it to be about me, about John Jasinski, about First Lady Denise, their kids, Ruby, whatever else, because this institution's 112 years old,
Right.
and it's going to the next 112 years, the following 112 years. So, it's not about me, us, whatever. It's about a team that did some things, but it's not even about that. Hopefully, you know, again, I think people would say, leave the place better than when you came. Yes, that's a very true statement. But higher ed's changing. And so we said in our inauguration speech in '09 that we had to be able to be agile back in '09, even though we didn't know it was going to quite be as tumultuous sometimes and as quick changing as it might be. But we knew we had to be agile, that we had to be different, but we couldn't define different, that we had to use partnership development, working with partners in ways that we've never thought through before as an institution. Hopefully, we're doing those things so that they continue on in the future, because higher ed here in 2017 isn't going to be the same in 2020. We've got to work with partners differently because we can't do it ourselves, right? And we need students involved with that, and I mean involved and engaged. We need our community partners involved and engaged. We need our funding sources to be involved and engaged. We need our legislators to really understand and embrace higher education. And that worries me, I'll be honest with you. So when you're talking about legacies, part of it is to uphold the historic nature of higher education and its importance in our society. And we always add on, it's an economic development driver. It's an economic driver. That's a true statement. But it's far, far more than that. So it's not about one person, it's not about one team. It's really continuing the Bearcat culture and ensuring that that culture is vibrant. Strategic Objective 5 is part of our strategic plan is organizational viability, organizational vitality, making sure that this thing continues to flow through, to be smooth. You're always, in any family, you know, you're going to have ups and downs. You're always going to have that no matter what in organizational life. But that Bearcat culture is just continuing, and I think that's what I would hope that people say, wow, that period of leadership just allowed us to continue to move.
As we wrap up this interview, is there anyone you would like to thank for being in the seats that you are today?
Well, I would like to thank John. This is one, you know. I mean, we were just coming to this little town for a couple of years, and I was going to get my education degree here. And I'd like to thank Fred Lamer for bringing us here. Sometimes I always tease Fred.
I'm not thanking Fred. I'm not.
I always tease Fred. You know, there's so many people, but I think, you know, I'm a spiritual woman, and so I think that the higher powers, that they have gifted us with some, and they gift everybody, but we've been paying attention to the gift and what we're being asked to do and the path that is being shown to us. And so even though I sometimes bucket and struggle with it, so just for the guidance, you know, and our parents and our families and our kids. Our kids have been so supportive. I mean, they've had to share us. They've had to share us unlike any other sometimes, and that's gets a little bit much for them at times. But so I really appreciate our kids and their help with us. They've taught me a lot.
You go through that litany, and it starts with the, you know, with the Lord and being blessed that way. But man, you know, I wouldn't be here without Denise. So yes, and your kids have given so much, and you know, hopefully they've been given so much too, and some responsibilities that go with it. But they've given so much. There's so many others, though. I mean, faculty members from early on, teachers that are so meaningful. Education is so important, right? How can we not accept that the continuum of education and lifelong learning is not important? Because I can go back to the, you know, the 4th grade, the 9th grade, the 12th, but the collegiate professors, one who is responsible for me being here. But Jacob's students.
Right.
Without Bearcat students, without what you guys do on a daily basis, then you're not driven. You know, John Gordon talks about his why. What's your why? Well, what's our why? It's you. It's your peers. So students, faculty, staff, community members, partners. It's
We've been
everyone that you come in
embraced by
contact
so
with.
many people in this position. So many people have been nurturing and very, very supportive of us being here. So there's just been many people, community. I mean, this community just wrapped themselves around us and said, okay, we've got your back. Well, let's go. Let's do this. So, yeah.
Well, on behalf of Northwest Student Media and Channel 8 and myself, I just want to thank you guys for sitting down with us for this interview and agreeing to answering all of our questions. And we wish you the most luck in the remainder of your presidency, as many years that may be,
Yes,
and
thank you.
many improvements of the Gone House
Yeah.
to come. So
Thank
Thank you
Jacob,
very
and
much.
thanks to
Thank
you and
you.
your
Thank you.
colleagues, too.
Yes.
thank you.